With me today is Harry Halloran, founder of Halloran Philanthropies. Harry, I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about this History of Well-Being project you've conceived.
Well, I'd love to. It started out with an idea that I have described to people as a really crazy idea. And the crazy idea was, inasmuch as we had started the foundation, or Halloran Philanthropies as we call it now, about 6 years ago, and we dedicated its mission to to be a help in creating the world that we all want. Now, the world that we all want, it occurred to us at the time, to Tony Carr, who was the president then and is still the president, was a world that's different than the world today. The world we have today might be the world that some very successful, wealthy people like, but it's not the world that we all want. And so then I had this really crazy idea, which was, well, how wouldn't it be great and interesting if we could develop a plan for how to get to the world that we all want, or perhaps a series, better still, of scenarios of how we get there. And I talked to a number of people, including the people at the Buckminster Fuller Institute, and they told me that Bucky and I were kind of similar in that we're both visionaries and we're both a little crazy. But he was a lot smarter than me. So they were very interested and talked to members of the board, and that encouraged me to think that this idea of creating a series of scenarios of how to get to this world that we all want, which we are playing a relatively small role, particularly compared to Gates or government aid programs, etc., throughout the world, and that it would be wonderful to do this, and people encouraged me. And then I realized, well, wait a minute. If you're going to do that, and since there are a lot of theories or futurists and have all kinds of ideas on the future of the world, and they're writing books, but none of them apparently have researched the history of human well-being. What really matters is human well-being. And then it occurred to me that that was critical. If we're going to do a good job with the scenarios, then we would have to do a very good job of understanding the history. And there wasn't any history. So then we decided that we would have a project, and we would find editors, and the editors would help us to find wonderful authors who were experienced. And we searched and searched and searched and found the present editors, Richard and Bob, and found out and talked to them about maybe would they be interested in a collaborative project. And by that we meant that we would work together, even though typically academics, and they are of course wonderful academics, and Joe is the president of the Quality of Life Institute, which seemed perfectly suited to the concept of human well-being, because really the terms are almost identical or synonymous. And so we were, and still are, very, very happy with our choices, and they said that they liked the concept. They liked the fact that it would be research-based as opposed to great ideas that people have that, think about the history and, oh, well, this is what I understand the history to be. Furthermore, I was very interested in the fact that one of the problems of our society today, as I see it, is that policymakers, the general public, and even academics depend on the mass media to get a lot of their information, perspective on the world, and that's a very flawed way to get to the history of human well-being, because the mass media is not interested in research. They're interested in writing about good stories. They're interested, of course, in uncovering plots and bad people, and they really tell most of the bad news, noteworthy bad news, and very little of the really good news. So how can one possibly understand the history of human well-being unless one did a serious research project? And we wanted to make sure that it was done collaboratively, because we felt that in order to do this right, it would have to have relatively few criteria, or at least emphasize certain ones. We discussed this with the editors. They agreed with us that a collaborative project made sense. They liked our approach to it, as opposed to, you have some funders that will have all kinds of ideas that just suit their biases, and we're very careful to, and they were convinced that this would work. So we've signed an agreement with them. We have a budget. We've agreed on the budget, and one of the things that impressed me about their ideas, which we agreed with completely, even though it costs money to fund this particular gathering, here was a wonderful chance for us funders and part of this collaborative to meet and hear and understand the perspectives of people from all over the world.
Yeah.
And it struck me and Tony Carr and Audrey. And Audrey Sellian is the point person. She's a doctorate in economics.
Right.
She's very articulate. She's a wonderful person. And she has been very important, because she's the one that really spent the most time, would talk to Tony and me, and also Mark Beam, who is also part of Halloran Philanthropies, and now Dermot Murphy, and then all of a sudden my sons, Neil, who's very much interested in data collection, and Brian, who's an artist, and my son Kevin in Paris. All of these people, all of a sudden,
They were all excited by it?
very excited about this project.
That's good. That's a good sign.
And Neil and Brian were here for the last couple of days. We have, as you know, the Thursday morning ending at noon and a luncheon to go, but it has been extremely successful, particularly from the perspective that it helped us to see, what was the perspective of these authors. We feel, and are discussing with the editors now, having heard this, ways to improve and clarify the instructions to the authors.
Yes.
Which we think is necessary to improve the project further.
Yeah.
And they seem to agree with us that it's worthwhile discussing perhaps changes in instructions to the authors, clarifying, what we think is going to make a very successful project.
Yeah.
So I'm very pleased with, the tremendous breadth and professionalism, and very interesting people who are the authors. And so I see this as a really important period of time. And then I'm looking forward to seeing, of course, in 5 or 6 months, the first drafts, and to see how that works. I can see a lot of work that will be done by the editors and if we can be helpful, we hope to be helpful. It's not that we have ideas of what this should be, because we're not researchers.
Yeah.
We're business people, philanthropists, and we're very excited about the project, but we don't wish to interject our ideas of is the world getting better or not, or is whatever. And one of the reasons I'm interested in this is I see a key question that is on a lot of people's minds. Is the world getting better overall, on the average, different regions, or is it getting worse? And the reason I think that's an interesting question is that that when you play the role or the aspect of what the media does, the media doesn't have the money to do the research. They don't have the orientation to present things in its full context. Perhaps it's
Right.
boring, perhaps, you know, they don't have that orientation. The internet doesn't particularly have that orientation either. In fact, the internet is even more diverse than the mass media. It's very difficult for people to get the real story.
Yeah.
So, so we think this idea of presenting a research base that we will be able to answer that question: is the world getting better or worse? And if it is getting better, for an example, it will tell a lot about the future, because if it's getting better, then the amount of tweaking and changes and everything that needs to be done to get to the world that we all want, okay, will be less. If it's getting worse, then it's going to require more difficult and more massive changes. And so, and that will speak to, I think, policymakers and the general public, who influence policymakers, of course, because they vote them in democracies anyway. And so, if people believe that it's getting better, then that's one thing, and that's going to help them, I hope, get the vision that if they're getting better, let's keep this going and let's make the appropriate changes to get it even better, and then we have a better chance of getting to the world that we all want.
Yes.
Which I believe a lot of people feel that way, that that's what they would like, not just our foundation.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
So-
then we're going to hopefully have a good product, and then there is a question of how do we reach people? Well, you're not going to reach it with just a 400-page book, no matter how well written.
Tell me about
It's
it.
going to be helped by, you're going to have, however, very interesting graphics. There's going to be internet presentations, is my vision anyway. There's going to be webinars. There's going to be versions that are going to be written for high school students, for the general public.
Yes.
But you have to have a good product first.
Yes.
So we think, instead of doing a video or television thing on this subject, let's have a well-researched book, which would be the basis for the going further, because then our intention is to reach millions of people.
Yes.
And so it's a very ambitious program. It's probably going to cost a lot of money, and we hope to have enough money to continue to support the marketing and production.
Yeah.
And maybe with a good product, we can draw other monies in, because you'll have something to show people and say,
Yes.
well, how would you like to support this? And, and it won't be just the burden of Halloran Philanthropies.
Yes.
Even if we had the money to do it, it would be better to get other people supporting it, because then it's going to have broader appeal.
Well,
So that's my
Yeah.
that's my evolution and the
Well,
plan.
I think
and so
I like the idea of disseminating this more broadly. And here's where your business and marketing acumen can help. And too much of this research sits on the shelf somewhere.
Yeah.
But in terms of your, I also really like the idea that you're looking at things that have some research support, because everyone and their brother has written about happiness and well-being.
Yeah.
But, is part of this also, when you say the future we all want, implied in this sounds to me to be a desire that everyone has to be fairly happy or content or have a life of meaning or fulfillment. Is that part of where you're coming from?
Well, yeah, I happen to believe, personally, from my experience, that basically most people in the world really want to improve their lot. Now, if you're a family guy, you want You want to do things for your family or a family gal. Even if you're, you're lesbian or gay and you have,
Right.
or whatever, and you don't have a family, even if you do have a family,
Or traditional family,
or if you
whatever.
have a job, you want to have your job make a positive impact.
Yes.
In addition to having the income to support your family and your lifestyle. And even if you're a poor person, you want to improve your life. And so if the history of human well-being suggests that there have been basically, on the average, and in most regions of the world, not all, but in most regions of the world, improvements, that then backs up the theory that people really are sort of biased towards improving things as opposed to destroying things.
Yes. Yes.
And if most of the people are interested in that, then and they will be encouraged by this history, and we'll have more people join in improving because they'll be encouraged by looking at this history. That's the dream or the reason.
Well, I also like the idea that you're bringing in contemporary research, so it's not just a philosophy of 500 years ago or 2,000 years ago.
Right.
So, so I think it's a really laudatory effort, and I'm wondering too about once you get this product and you disseminate it, will there be a desire to try to, you said, to improve the lot further of people?
Well, what we're doing things now, working with supporting microfinance, for example, in South America. We're working on projects in rural villages in India. We're working on projects for biomass in Haiti and in Africa. And we're doing a lot of things in the United States, and particularly in the areas in which we live, but also where one of our businesses is in Bradford, Pennsylvania. That refinery is involved in supporting 138 charities, which surprised me that there were even that many charities in a town of 8,500. But it's also in McKean County, which is a very poor county in Pennsylvania. So we will continue doing, what we can do with limited resources, because all resources, even Bill Gates has limited resources, even though he has a lot more than we do.
Yeah.
And so it's just part of the journey, as far as I see it. If this project helps accelerate it and bring others into it, and others get excited about it, and policymakers get excited about it, then that just accelerates the journey.
Yes.
So we're going to continue to, do what we're doing, working with social entrepreneurs, investing in them, investing in renewable energy and things like that. And I have companies that are in renewable energy.
Yes, you do.
And therefore, I feel that the businesses can make a positive impact on society.
Yes.
Our grant making will have a positive impact, and hopefully this project. And so it fits in, and it's part of the reason why I'm very excited about the project, and I'm very excited about the people that have been chosen. And I've talked to some of the authors, and I was a little surprised, to tell you the truth, that they were that excited about this. I mean, of course, I hope they would be.
Yes.
And the fact that we're making payments to the authors and have paid for their expenses and everything here, obviously helped attract them.
Yes.
Well, fine. You can't attract people unless you have a good project, and we think we have that. And also, we need to, induce them. These are authors that are busy. They have other projects, or they wouldn't be here if they weren't successful in what they're doing. So, how to draw these people?
Well, I think you treat them with a lot of respect and kindness, and that means a lot. And I think that you're I just think that your focus on some of the very top researchers is the
Yeah.
way to go, because
Yeah.
from even a business perspective, the bottom line is what can you really show me that's got
Right.
some data behind it, and
Right.
I really appreciate you spending some time to share with me your vision, and I wish you luck in your endeavor.
Good. You know, it was interesting. I was just talking to Rich and Richard.
Yeah.
And I wanted to meet with the woman who's from the Brookings Institute.
Yes, yes. Very impressive.
She gave a very good
Dr. Graham,
presentation.
yes.
Dr. Graham, Carol
Yeah.
Graham.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason I want to meet with her is, you know, the Brookings, they may be interested in adding their support,
Yes.
their name,
Their research group. Uh-huh.
once we have
Yes.
a good product.
Yes.
Not before. We're not going to ask them for support.
Yeah,
We're just going to, we're just going to be happy that they're part of it. And that would be an example. And then, you know, you can imagine with a good product, you go to Bill Gates.
Yes. Yes.
And
It can have a synergistic effect.
and get more support. And then we hope to do updates every 5 years.
Yes.
Well, is the world continuing to get better?
Yes.
If it is.
Yeah.
Or if it's not getting better, is it starting to get better?
Yes. Yes.
So,
Well, I appreciate your interest, and I think it's very exciting, and I can't wait to see this product
Oh,
and,
yeah.
and the first 5-year
Yeah.
plan that you come up with.
well, 2 years or a year and a half from now, when we're looking at this book and enjoying it and enjoying some of the graphics that I think are necessary, that's going to be really exciting.
Well,
So looking forward to that.
thank you for your time today.
Great. Well, it was good to be here. Appreciate
Thank you.
it.